the news, Nigeria's COVID-19 toll nears 2,000 as infection spreads to 34 states and the FCT. WHO raises concerns over rising community transmission in West Africa. And South Africa records highest single-day COVID-19 rise, pushing toll above 5,000. Many thanks for joining us on News Now. We begin with the latest in Nigeria's COVID-19 pandemic. 34 states across the country and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, have confirmed at least one case of the coronavirus, meaning just 2 Nigerian states is yet to be affected by the pandemic. Yobe is the latest state to be affected by the virus after it recorded its first case in a 29-year-old man who has no travel history. This development is coming less than 24 hours after the state government received 125 Almajiris evacuated from Gombe. Elsewhere, the Kaduna state government has confirmed 16 new COVID-19 cases in returning Almajiris from Kano state. The states have now begun tracing the contacts of the infected persons. Nigeria has a total of 1,728 confirmed COVID-19 cases, of which 307 have recovered and have been discharged. 51 persons have however died from the illness. And to Lagos, a 25-year-old man has died of the coronavirus, bringing the toll of COVID-19 related fatalities in the state to 21. The development was confirmed in a tweet by the Lagos State Ministry of Health on Thursday morning. It revealed that the patient was in a state of severe breathlessness at the time of admission. Lagos is the epicenter of Nigeria's COVID-19 pandemic, with 947 confirmed cases. Of this number, 722 are active, while 187 have recovered and have been discharged. Economic activities in Nigeria will gradually resume from Monday, May 4th, 2020, after the expiration of the COVID-19 lockdown imposed on Lagos, Ogun and the Federal Capital Territory. In line with the new national measures announced by President Muhammadu Buhari earlier this week, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has provided more guidelines for the gradual reopening of the economy of Lagos. There's more in this next report.
President Buhari had in his national address permitted state governments to review the guidelines for the phased easing of the lockdown, given the unique circumstances in their respective states. Governor Sanwo-Olu at this press briefing provided clarifications as to how the guidelines will be implemented in the state. For businesses that wish to reopen, the governor says they must adhere strictly to social distancing, while high levels of personal hygiene are maintained at workplaces.
Companies that choose to operate within this controlled easing environment would operate within the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. They're also directed to operate at the maximum of 60% of their staff capacity. We understand the importance that the banks and the financial institutions play in our economy, and for that reason, we'll expect that the banks will have more branches open, and we'll expect them to also keep to the 9 o'clock to 3 p.m. Working hours. Very important for me to mention that banks also must ensure that they have regular cleaning of their or decontamination of their ATM machine. They must ensure that do that every other hour, ensure that their ATM machines at their premises are cleaned and they are decontaminated regularly.
The governor says commuters in public transport must wear face masks and buses must load 60% of their capacity.
All buses should load to a maximum of 60% of their full capacity, meaning that if your capacity is 10 passengers, you cannot load more than 6 at every given time, at any given time. No standing in all BRT and the Lagos bus service bus operation. All air conditioning systems in the public service, in all this public system also must be switched off. All the waterways transportation will be allowed to move from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily on the further notice.
Sanwo-Olu also gave directives for schools, religious organizations, as well as eateries and restaurants.
Eateries and restaurants will also be allowed to open between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., but they shall only do takeaways. There will not be permitted any form of in-dining service whatsoever. All schools and institutions at primary, secondary, and tertiary levels will continue to remain physically closed. Students are expected to continue learning alternative online and media channels as announced by the various institutions of learning. All places of worship, be it formal or informal, will remain closed from any form of congregational service or assemblage until further notice.
The Lagos State government has also set up a committee comprising of major stakeholders to ensure that the aim of this directive is achieved. The state government says it will also create a whistleblower channel where companies that flout these directives can be reported by members of the public. Unyi Adekunle, TV360, Lagos.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Boss Mustapha, says Nigeria is deepening its local research capacity to find a cure for the coronavirus pandemic ravaging the world. Mustapha, at the daily press briefing of the PTF in Abuja, also stressed that gradual easing of the lockdown does not signify an end to the coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria. He therefore urged Nigerians to keep observing social distancing and good personal hygiene so that the spread of the disease can be controlled.
The easing of restrictions and introduction of revised measures do not amount to the end of the battle against COVID-19. Indeed, it signifies the need for more vigilance, stringent compliance, so that we are not lured into complacency capable of diminishing the progress we have made so far. We have received information on domestic and international claims about emerging inventions on COVID-19. These are most welcome, but scientific validation process and protocols will have to be followed. We are open to all options for the good of humanity.
The World Health Organization says it's worried by the community spread of the new coronavirus in many West African countries. Regional head of the organization, Matshidiso Moeti, said this on Thursday. She told a news conference that decisions to impose or remove restrictions could be extremely challenging politically, but governments needed to use data. Moeti said, quote, when a government decides not to lock down a city, they need to be aware that there will be consequences in terms of the spread of the virus. Sub-Saharan Africa has confirmed around 23,800 cases with over 900 deaths. A number of countries have issued targeted lockdowns in some major cities, as well as dusk-to-dawn curfews. But some other countries like Ghana and Burkina Faso have started lifting lockdown measures due to concerns that a prolonged shutdown could have a lasting impact on their economies. The European Union has commenced the distribution of food items to vulnerable households in Nigeria. EU's head of delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS, Kelty Kelson, flagged off the distribution on Thursday in the Federal Capital Territory. Kelson explains that the intervention targeted at 1,200 vulnerable households was to support the Nigerian government in its bid to cushion the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on the people. Speaking at Kari Majiji community in Abuja, the EU ambassador stated that 25% of the items would be targeted at people living with disabilities, while the remaining 70% will be given to widows and other vulnerable persons. The EU also donated a hand-washing system to the community as part of measures to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the community. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development has assured persons with disability of inclusion in activities of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. The group gave the assurance at a stakeholders meeting with persons with disability in Abuja on Thursday. This follows allegations by the Coalition of Disability Organizations, CODO, that the over 25 million Nigerians with disabilities are being marginalized by the government in the distribution of palliatives.
When will a person with disability be appointed to be a member of the Presidential Task Force in accordance with the Nigeria Disability Act? 2. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 through our ministry should present a clear-cut plan on how to provide palliatives for persons with disabilities, and the provision of the palliatives should start immediately because persons with disabilities are most vulnerable amongst the social groups.
I think it's high time we have a full department in your ministry that is particularly responsible for persons with disability. We need a PWD division in your ministry. Number two is to talk the issue of data. The reason why we are struggling even in various levels of intervention is because there are no data. The importance of data cannot be overemphasized.
It is time that we come together, keeping aside our differences, and work for a common agenda, which is disability inclusion.
The present administration of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari has placed priority on assisting persons with disabilities by coming up with policies and programs which, when executed by the ministry, will ensure inclusion, protection, and improve the well-being of all persons with disabilities in the country.
Nigeria's economy has been badly hit by the novel coronavirus since the first case was reported on February 27, 2020. Owners of non-essential businesses have been voicing their concerns over the lockdown restrictions and pleading that the curfew be relaxed. There's more in this report. Since the federal government restricted intra- and interstate movement to contain the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of micro, small and medium enterprises in Nigeria have become vulnerable. Though the lockdown was ordered to save lives, businesses began to die. Korea's startup Fast Track Logistics was indeed on the fast track, opening branches in 3 states in less than 5 years, employing over 20 staff with a fleet of over 20 motorcycles. But since President Muhammadu Buhari ordered a lockdown on March 29th, FTD Logistics began to cut their losses.
Before COVID-19's full impact on businesses, we're doing, say, 450 to 550 shipments every day for deliveries. Now, since the pandemic, we started noticing that volumes were dropping to half of that, a quarter of that. So we're talking about 250 to 180 shipments. And then that also in itself affected revenue. So if we're making monthly, if we're making daily, say roughly 70 to 80,000 naira, started noticing it was dropping to say 25 to 30,000 naira.
But that was just the beginning. As Adedayo was to soon find out, the pandemic would further drive down consumption, forcing him to take drastic steps to keep his business afloat.
What we've tried to do is to drop running costs, is to drop overheads. So we have successfully divided the team into 2. And then we have moved from a salary base to a commission base. So it means that people will be paid for what it is they have done. So what we have done in that is, like I said, we divided the team into 2. So some persons work more like shifts. One person work this week and then go home, rest. The other sets work next week. So that in itself has helped us bring down the running cost and the operational cost.
Business hasn't been good either for 37-year-old Kayode Gabriel, who's a printer and brand designer. He usually makes about 500 carrier bags and about 1,000 boxes for businesses per month. But since the lockdown on non-essential services in Lagos, he's had to close up shop and adopt frugal habits to survive.
Pre-COVID-19 lockdown, so I've been saving a lot of money. After like 2 weeks, the account was going down because we are only seeing debits, there's no credit, unlike before. So we have to shorten our living standard. We have to shorten it down so that we can accommodate, all other expenses, but at a minimal level.
Adedayo and Kayede's story is not unique. Over 41 million small business owners are also laboring under the financial burden of the COVID-19 lockdown, as they've been forced to stay home and are unable to transact business. Anetta Felix, TV360, Nigeria. South Africa reported another 354 cases of the coronavirus on Wednesday, the most new cases the country has recorded in a single day. In a tweet on Thursday, the country's health ministry said the figure represents a 73% increase in the day before. The ministry also said 10 new deaths were recorded to bring the total fatality rate to 103. South Africa now has 5,350 confirmed cases, of which 2,073 have recovered. Elsewhere, Mozambique has prolonged by a month the state of emergency ordered on April 1st to try to slow down the spread of the infection. Under the state of emergency, movement of people within the country is restricted, schools are shut, and no foreigners are allowed in the country. Infections in the southern African country have now risen to 76, of which 12 have recovered. You're still watching News Now on TV360 Nigeria. We'll be right back shortly. President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, and the Head of Civil Service for Lashade Yemieson to restructure, merge and scrap some government agencies. The President's decision was based on the recommendation of an 800-page report which recommended the abolishment and merging of 102 government agencies and parastatals. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, told journalists that the Aratanye report has been in place for a long time, but that Buhari's approval would ensure that it's implemented. A former governor of Borno State, Mohammed Goni, is dead. A close family source confirmed the passing of the elder statesman, saying he died at the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital at about 8 p.m. on Wednesday. The cause of death has not been disclosed. In 1979, Goni became the first democratically elected governor of Borno State. He contested for the governorship of Borno in 2011 under the People's Democratic Party (PDP), but lost to former governor Kashim Shettima. The convener of Revolution Now protest, Omoyele Sowore, has filed an appeal against the judgment of the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja. He filed the suit alongside his co-defendant, Olawale Bakare, on 5 grounds at the Court of Appeal in Abuja. Sowore is challenging the bail condition, which restricts him from addressing public gatherings and leaving the FCT. Sowore and Bakare are facing trial over charges of treason and money laundering filed against them by the government. They've however pleaded not guilty and have since been granted bail to the tune of 100 million naira and 2 sureties in like sum. We'll take a break now and we'll be right back to join Oyin Adekunle, who's standing by for business news.
Shegun.
Alpha, say tomorrow still day on.
What's your tomorrow?
Community meeting now.
You know they here, Abi?
Now beggy. See, if we meet for my house, inside parlor, then go no.
This COVID-19 is not a child's play.
If you want to elect the new secretary, we fit to
do one for WhatsApp, or for Skype, or even on Zoom. Or we just wait.
I will not negotiate
this social distancing. It is non-negotiable.
Not every infected person shows symptoms, but every infected person is contagious. Avoid large gatherings and self-isolate if you think you might have come in contact with a carrier. Your safety and the safety of others is in your hands.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur.
You're welcome back. Here's Oyin Adekunle with business news.
Thank you, Aneta. Oil prices jumped for a second day on Thursday, lifted by signs that the U.S. crude glut is not growing as quickly as expected. Brent crude was up 13.8% at $25.65 a barrel in light trading. West Texas Intermediate crude was up 16.5% to $17.54 per barrel. Experts say the increases are a modest but marked recovery from the nosedive of U.S. crude futures for May, an unprecedented plunge below zero that traders had not previously believed possible. Here we'll take a pause and return with stock market review. The NSE made its way back to the 23,000 benchmark today after key market indicators jumped by 0.67% or 153 points. And market capitalization also recorded a major boost, appreciating by 80 billion naira to close at 11.997 trillion naira. And investors picked up the gains from where they stopped in previous session, with nearly 400 million shares worth 3.2 billion naira exchanging hands in 4,946 deals. MTN Nigeria and Adova again the best performers for the second straight day. And of course, WAPCO and Access Bank also joined the list with 30 kobo and 25 kobo increase in their respective share prices. And it's not been a very good trading week for Nigeria breweries, closing the day at 30 naira per share from 31 naira and 5 kobo in previous session. And it's followed by BUS Cement with 40 kobo loss. And banking stocks also saw a decline, like Zenith and Guarantee Trust Bank also dipped by 50 kobo, and that's combined. And moving on now to foreign markets, we see that FTSE is diving below 6,000 points today, and US Dow falls 340 points as post-coronavirus employment filings exceed 30 million, while Nikkei average bounced back today to exceed 20,000 for the first time in nearly 2 months. And that's it from business. It's back to you now, Aneta.
Thanks for that business update on you. Moving on now, some 21 people have died and 13 others have been seriously injured in the Mexican city of Jalisco after ingesting contaminated liquor. At a press conference on Wednesday, state health official Hugo Esparza said 56 people have been affected in 2 municipalities in the western states since Saturday, including the 21 who have died and 29 who have become ill. Esparza said patients are presenting symptoms of blurred vision and or vision loss, intense abdominal pain, difficulty breathing, and convulsions. Laboratory tests showed the liquor contained a high concentration of methanol meant for industrial use. A Canadian helicopter has gone missing off the Ionian Sea off Greece. Canadian authorities say they lost contact with the CH-148 cyclone after it took off during the NATO exercise on Wednesday. Greek media say they were between 3 and 6 people on board. Rescue teams are searching international waters of Greece's Kefalonia Island. And now to news and sports. Watford has signed French midfielder Pape Gueye from Le Havre despite the ongoing financial uncertainty surrounding Premier League clubs, and that's due to the coronavirus crisis. 21-year-old Gueye, who's featured already for France at both under 18 and under 19 levels, signed a 5-year deal with the Hornets effective from July 1st. Watford FC said an official pre-contract agreement has already been lodged with all relevant authorities as Guye's current deal at France League 2 side at Le Havre would be expiring this summer. Premier League clubs could lose an estimated €1 billion in revenue if the season cannot be completed. And that's it on News Now on TV360 Nigeria. Many thanks for watching.